The phone buzzed on my nightstand like a rattlesnake. I grabbed it without thinking, still half asleep, and saw Amber's name on the screen. Grandpa, I'm at the police station. My stepfather beat me, but he says I attacked him. Mom doesn't believe me. Please come. The line cut. My heart didn't. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? I was out of bed before the echo of her voice faded, threw on yesterday's jeans and a shirt, didn't bother with socks. The house was cold and dark, but I moved through it like I still knew every corner by instinct, which I did. 63 years old, and I could still move when it mattered. The drive should have taken 40 minutes. I made it in 12. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my mind was racing through possibilities, through scenarios, through the tone in Amber's voice. She was 16, smart, artistic. Not the kind of kid who cried wolf, not the kind who called her grandfather at 2 a.m. unless something had gone very, very wrong. Trevor Reeves, that was the name that kept circling back. Melissa's husband of 3 years, the man who'd slid into my daughter's life with the smooth confidence of someone who'd practiced the role. Operations manager at some logistics company, always smiling, always reasonable, always just a little too perfect. I'd never trusted him. The police station sat on the corner of 5th and Madison, a squat brick building that looked exactly like what it was, a place where bad nights came to get processed and filed away. I parked crooked and didn't care. The front doors were locked, but I could see light inside, and I hammered on the glass until a young officer appeared. He was maybe 25, with the kind of fresh face that said he still believed in the job. He opened the door with an apology ready on his lips, but when he saw me, everything changed. His eyes went wide, his mouth opened, closed, opened again. Judge Satton, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Where's my granddaughter? Interview room 2. Sir, I was already past him. The hallway smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. My shoes squeaked on the linoleum. I'd walked these halls before, back when I wore the robe, back when my word could send a man away for 20 years, or set him free. That was before the cancer, before the early retirement, before I'd thought I could just live quietly and let the world spin without me. Interview room 2 had a small window in the door. I looked through it and saw 3 people. Amber sat in a plastic chair, her arms wrapped around herself. Her hair was tangled and there was redness around her left eye that would be a bruise by morning. She looked small, terrified, alone. Melissa stood near the wall, her arms crossed, her face tight with that particular expression that meant she'd already made up her mind about something and wasn't interested in hearing alternatives. My daughter, 39 years old and still searching for easy answers in all the wrong places. Trevor sat across from Amber, and that's what made my jaw clench. He looked calm, composed. There was a small mark on his cheek, barely visible, and he was leaning back in his chair with the posture of a man who'd already won. He was talking to the officer standing between them, gesturing with his hands, explaining something with the kind of patient reasonableness that I'd seen 1,000 times in my courtroom. It was the tone of a liar who believed his own story. I pushed open the door. Everyone turned. Amber's face transformed, relief flooding through the fear. Melissa's expression shifted to something defensive, and Trevor's eyes flickered with something that might have been annoyance before the mask of concern slid back into place. "Dad," Melissa said, "you didn't need to come." "Grandpa." Amber was out of her chair and across the room, wrapping her arms around me. She was shaking. I held her, keeping my eyes on Trevor. "What happened?" The officer, a different one, older, with sergeant stripes, cleared his throat. "Mr. Satton, I'm Sergeant Mitchell. We're just trying to get to the bottom of a domestic disturbance. Mr. Reeves called us after an altercation with his stepdaughter." "That's not what happened," Amber said against my chest, her voice muffled but fierce. "That's not what happened at all." Trevor leaned forward, and his voice was so perfectly pitched, concerned, slightly hurt, trying to be understanding. "Amber's been having some behavioral issues lately. We've been trying to work with her, but tonight she became violent. I tried to restrain her and—" "He's lying," Amber said. "Sweetheart," Trevor said, and the endearment made my skin crawl. "I know you're upset, but we need to be honest about—" "I am being honest," her voice cracked. "You came into my room and started yelling at me about my phone, and when I tried to leave, you grabbed me and—" "I did not grab you," Trevor interrupted, still calm, still reasonable. "You swung at me first. Your mother saw—" "I saw you restraining her," Melissa said quietly, not meeting my eyes. "She was out of control, Dad. Trevor was just trying to calm her down." I felt Amber flinch against me, felt her whole body tense with betrayal. "Melissa," I said carefully, "look at your daughter's face. She has a small bruise because she fought back when Trevor tried to hold her arms. It was an accident." "And Trevor's injury?" Trevor touched his cheek with 2 fingers, a delicate gesture that drew attention to the barely visible mark. "Like I said, she swung at me. I don't blame her. Teenagers have a lot of emotions, but we can't let this behavior continue." I'd heard enough. I looked at Sergeant Mitchell. "Has my granddaughter been evaluated by a medical professional?" "We were just about to." "Good. I want photographs of every mark on her body, documented, time-stamped, and I want a formal statement from her taken separately from this man." Trevor's expression didn't change, but something cold moved behind his eyes. "Harold, I understand you're protective, but this really isn't necessary. This is a family matter." "If it's a family matter, why are we in a police station at 2:30 in the morning?" "Because," Trevor said, his voice still maddeningly calm, "I wanted everything documented properly. I wanted to make sure we handled this the right way, with official oversight, so there's no question about what really happened." That's when I knew. He'd planned this. Every word, every gesture, the call to the police, the positioning of himself as the reasonable adult, the minor injury on his own face that was just visible enough to support his story, even the timing, middle of the night, when everyone was tired and confused and more likely to accept the simplest explanation. Trevor Reeves wasn't just a manipulator, he was a craftsman. "Amber's coming home with me," I said. "Dad, no," Melissa said. "She needs to come home with us. We need to work through this as a family." She called me, Melissa, at 2 in the morning, terrified, asking for help. That's not a child who feels safe in your house. "That's because we're trying to set boundaries," Trevor said. "And Amber doesn't like being held accountable for her actions." Amber made a sound, small, wounded, and I felt something cold and old wake up inside my chest. Something that had been sleeping since I'd retired. Since I'd decided to be just a grandfather instead of Judge Satton. "Sergeant Mitchell," I said, "unless you're charging my granddaughter with a crime, I'm taking her with me." The sergeant looked uncomfortable. He glanced at Trevor, at Melissa, at Amber's frightened face pressed against my shirt. "She's a minor," Melissa started. "She's your minor," I said, "and you're free to come get her any time you want. But right now, tonight, she's coming with me." Melissa's face went red. Trevor stood up slowly, putting a hand on her shoulder. A gesture of support that looked just a little too possessive. "If that's what you think is best, Harold," Trevor said. His tone was conciliatory, but his eyes were sharp. "We'll talk about this tomorrow, when everyone's had a chance to calm down." "Yes," I said, "we will." I walked Amber out of that interview room with my arm around her shoulders, walked her through the hallway while Melissa's voice called after us, angry, defensive, confused. walked her past the young officer at the desk, who looked like he wanted to apologize again, but didn't dare. We got to my car, and Amber finally let go. She slid into the passenger seat and curled up against the door, hugging her knees, and started crying. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, exhausted sobs that said she'd been holding everything in for far too long. I started the engine and drove us home. The house was still dark when we pulled into the driveway. Amber hadn't said a word during the drive, just stared out the window with her arms wrapped around herself. I didn't push. 20 years on the bench had taught me that people talked when they were ready, not when you demanded it. I unlocked the front door and switched on the lights. The living room looked exactly as I'd left it 6 hours earlier. Newspaper on the coffee table, reading glasses beside it, the remote perfectly aligned with the table's edge because old habits are tough to break. "Are you hungry?" I asked. Amber shook her head. "Thirsty?" Another shake. "Okay. Guest room is made up. You remember where it is?" She nodded, but didn't move toward the stairs, just stood there in my entryway looking lost. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "you're safe here." That broke something loose. Her face crumpled, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Grandpa. I'm sorry I called so late. I'm sorry I'm causing problems with Mom. I just didn't know who else." "Stop." I crossed the room and put my hands on her shoulders, made her look at me. "You did exactly the right thing. You called someone who loves you when you needed help. That's never something to apologize for. Mom's so angry. Your mom is confused. There's a difference." "She doesn't believe me." "Not yet," I said, "but she will." Amber wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand. "You don't even know what really happened. So tell me." We sat on the couch, and she talked. It poured out of her in fits and starts, the way truth always did when it had been dammed up too long. Trevor had come into her room around midnight. "He did that sometimes," she said. "Just appeared in her doorway without knocking, usually when Melissa was asleep. He'd wanted to check her phone. Said he had the right as her stepfather, said she'd been spending too much time texting friends and not enough time engaging with the family. I told him no," Amber said. "I told him it was my phone and my privacy, and he couldn't just demand it. That's when he got angry." The anger, she explained, wasn't loud. Trevor didn't yell, not usually. Instead, his voice got quieter, colder. He'd stepped into her room and closed the door behind him, told her she was being disrespectful, told her she was going to hand over the phone, or there would be consequences. "I tried to leave," Amber said. "I just wanted to get out of the room, go downstairs, wake up Mom. But he grabbed my arm, grabbed it hard. I pulled away, and that's when he hit me." "Open hand or closed?" She blinked at the specificity of the question. "Open, across my face." "Then what?" I screamed. Mom came running. Trevor was already moving away from me, holding his cheek, saying I'd attacked him, saying he'd only been trying to calm me down after I got violent. "And your mother believed him?" "She always believes him," Amber said quietly. "Always. No matter what I say, no matter what I show her, she wants everything to be okay so badly that she makes herself believe it's okay." I'd seen that before too. People constructing reality to match what they needed it to be rather than what it actually was. "Has he done this before?" Amber hesitated. "Amber, not like tonight," she said carefully. "But he's mean. He says things that sound reasonable but make you feel terrible. He monitors everything I do. He goes through my stuff when I'm at school. He tells Mom I'm lying when I'm not. And sometimes, when it's just the two of us, he gets this look." "What kind of look?" "Like he's imagining what he could do if no one was watching." Cold settled deeper into my chest, the kind of cold that came with recognition. "How long has this been going on?" "Since they got married, but it's gotten worse in the last 6 months." "Did you tell your mother?" "I tried. She says I'm being dramatic. She says Trevor is just trying to be a good parent. She says I need to adjust to having a father figure." Amber's voice went bitter. I had a father figure, my actual father. Before he got sick and passed. Trevor isn't my father. He's just some guy who married my mom and decided I was part of the package he could control. I made a mental note of that word. Control. It fit with everything else I'd observed. Does he monitor your mother's phone too? Amber looked surprised by the question. I think so. She always knows where Mom is, always, and sometimes Mom will mention wanting to do something, like meet a friend for coffee, and Trevor will have a reason why that day doesn't work, and then the friend stops calling. Classic isolation tactics. I'd seen it in abuse cases, seen it in custody battles, seen it in the wreckage of families torn apart by someone who understood that power meant controlling the narrative. Okay, I said. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay here tonight. Tomorrow, we're going to document everything. Your injuries, your statement, everything you can remember. And then we're going to make sure this doesn't happen again. How? Leave that to me. Mom won't listen. She never listens when it's about Trevor. She will, I said. Eventually. People can only ignore the truth for so long before it corners them. Amber looked at me with hope and doubt warring in her expression. She was 16, old enough to understand that adults didn't always fix things, young enough to still want to believe they could. Get some sleep, I told her. We'll figure out the rest in the morning. She went upstairs slowly, like her body weighed 3 times what it should. I heard the guest room door close, heard the bed creak. Then silence. I sat alone in my living room and thought about Trevor Reeves, thought about the way he'd positioned himself in that interview room, the precise amount of injury on his face, enough to support his story, not enough to look suspicious, the reasonable tone, the subtle undermining of Amber's credibility, the way he'd manipulated Melissa into defending him without question. This wasn't amateur hour. This was someone who understood systems, who understood how to use official channels to his advantage, who knew exactly how far he could push before anyone would seriously question him. I'd put men away for less. But that was when I had the bench, when I had institutional power behind every word. Now I was just a retired judge with a cancer scar and a granddaughter who needed help. The old frustration flickered, the helplessness of being outside the system instead of running it. But then something else flickered too. Something colder, more patient. I didn't need the bench. I just needed to be smart. My phone buzzed. I checked it and saw a text from Melissa. Dad, this is ridiculous. Bring Amber home, now. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back, she stays here until I know she's safe. The response came immediately. She is safe. With her mother. You're making this so much worse. I didn't reply. There was no point, not yet. Instead, I opened my contacts and scrolled down to a name I hadn't called in 2 years. Sean Baxter, detective. 28 years on the force. We'd worked together back when I was still on the bench. He'd testified in my courtroom more times than I could count. Good cop. Honest cop. The kind who believed in procedure but understood when procedure wasn't enough. It was 3:15 in the morning. He'd be asleep. But he'd also told me, years ago, that if I ever needed anything, any time, call. I called. He picked up on the 4th ring, voice rough with sleep. Satton? Sorry to wake you. You wouldn't unless it mattered. What's wrong? I told him. Briefly. Factually. Amber's call, the police station, Trevor's performance, the patterns I was starting to see. Baxter was quiet for a moment after I finished. Then, Trevor Reeves, you said? You know him? Name sounds familiar. Let me check something. I heard rustling, the sound of a computer starting up. Operations manager at Westfield Logistics? That's him. More typing, then a long pause. Sean? Harry, this guy has a file. My hand tightened on the phone. What kind of file? Nothing that stuck. Couple of domestic disturbance calls at a previous address. Ex-girlfriend filed a restraining order 6 years ago but dropped it before it went to court. Workplace complaint about harassment that got settled internally. It's all just smoke. But it's there. Can you send me copies? Officially? No. These are sealed records and dropped charges. Unofficially? Another pause. Give me until tomorrow. I'll see what I can find that's public record. Thanks, Sean. Harry, be careful. Guys like this, the ones who know how to work the system, they're dangerous specifically because they look harmless. I know. Do you? Because you sound like you're planning something. I'm just protecting my granddaughter. Yeah, Baxter said. That's what worries me. The last time you decided to protect someone, 3 defense attorneys filed misconduct complaints, all of which were dismissed. Because you were right. But you were also operating from the bench. Now you're just a private citizen. A private citizen with a lot of experience finding the truth. Baxter sighed. I'll send what I can. But Harry, don't do anything stupid. We hung up. I sat in the dark living room and felt something old and familiar settling back into my bones. It had been 3 years since I'd worn the robe. 3 years since I'd stared across a courtroom at someone who thought they were clever enough to lie to my face. 3 years since I'd reminded anyone what Judge Satton could do. Maybe it was time for a reminder. Morning came too fast and too bright. I made coffee and eggs, the routine motions giving my hands something to do while my mind worked through scenarios. Amber came downstairs around 8, moving carefully, like her body still remembered last night's fear. The bruise on her face had bloomed overnight, a purple-black shadow that spread from her cheekbone to her temple. In daylight, there was no mistaking it for anything accidental. How do you feel? I asked. Sore. Tired. She sat at the kitchen table. Has Mom called? Texted 3 times. I slid a plate of eggs toward her. Eat something. She picked at the food without appetite. What happens now? Now we document everything. Photos, written statement, timeline. Everything you remember about last night and everything that came before. What's the point? The police already decided Trevor was telling the truth. The police made a preliminary assessment based on incomplete information. That can change. You sound like a judge. I was a judge. I mean, you sound like Judge Satton. She looked at me with something between hope and nervousness. Mom told me stories about how you were in court, how lawyers were scared of you. Your mother exaggerates. She said you once made a prosecutor cry by pointing out 17 separate errors in his filing. 16, I corrected. The 17th was questionable. Amber almost smiled. Then the smile faded. Trevor isn't scared of anyone. He thinks he's smarter than everyone else. Most manipulators do. That's their weakness. I took photos of her bruise from multiple angles with my phone, making sure the lighting was clear, the timestamp visible. Had her write out everything she could remember about last night, times, exact words, sequence of events. Then we went back further. Every incident with Trevor, every uncomfortable moment, every time he'd done something that felt wrong but sounded reasonable when he explained it. The pattern was textbook: isolation, monitoring, gaslighting, escalating control disguised as concern. By 10 o'clock, I had a dozen pages of documentation and a clear picture of what had been happening in my daughter's house for the past 3 years. My phone rang. Melissa, I answered. Good morning. Don't you good morning me. Bring Amber home right now. This has gone far enough. Has Trevor left for work? That caught her off balance. What? Yes, why? Come over, without him. We need to talk. We can talk when you bring my daughter home. Melissa, I'm asking you to come here and have a conversation with me and Amber, just the 3 of us. Is that really so unreasonable? Silence. I could hear her breathing, hear the conflict in the pause. Fine, she said finally, but I'm bringing her home with me. We'll see. She arrived 20 minutes later, parking in my driveway like she was preparing for a quick getaway. Melissa looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail, stress written across her face. She came in without knocking. "Amber, get your things." "Mom, please just listen," Amber started. "I've listened enough. Your grandfather is putting ideas in your head, making this situation worse than it needs to be." "Melissa," I said calmly, "sit down." "I'm not sitting down. I'm taking my daughter and look at her face." Melissa stopped, really looked. I saw the moment the bruise registered, saw her eyes widen slightly, saw the careful denial start to crack. "Trevor didn't mean to hurt her," she said, but her voice wavered. "It was an accident. She was out of control and he was trying to restrain her, and that's his story," I said. "Have you asked for hers?" "I was there. I saw what happened." "You saw the end. You saw what Trevor wanted you to see." I gestured to the table. "Sit. 5 minutes. If after 5 minutes you still want to take Amber back to that house, I won't stop you." Something in my tone must have reached her. Or maybe it was the exhaustion. Or maybe some small part of her already knew the truth and was just terrified to admit it. Whatever the reason, she sat. I put the documentation in front of her. The photos, the written statement, the timeline. "Read it," I said. "Dad, I don't need to read." 5 minutes, you gave me that." She read. I watched her face, watched the defensive walls start to tremble, watched her hands tighten on the pages. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes. "This is exaggerated. Amber's upset, so she's making it sound worse than it was." "Which part is exaggerated?" I asked. "The part where Trevor monitors her phone without permission? The part where he isolates her from friends? The part where he comes into her room at night when you're asleep? He's just trying to be a parent. He's trying to set boundaries." "By hitting her?" "He didn't hit her. He was restraining her, and she got hurt accidentally." Amber made a small sound. Melissa looked at her daughter, really looked, and something broke. "Baby," she said, and her voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell me it was this bad?" "I tried," Amber whispered. "I tried so many times, but you always defended him. You always said I was being difficult or dramatic or just needed to adjust. So I stopped trying. Trevor loves us. He's had a hard time adjusting too. His previous relationship ended badly, and he's protective because he cares. And, Melissa," I interrupted. "Listen to yourself. You're making excuses for a man who strikes your daughter and frightens her enough that she calls me at 2 a.m. He's my husband, and she's your daughter." The silence stretched out. I could see the war happening behind Melissa's eyes, could see her trying to hold on to the version of reality she'd built, the happy remarriage, the blended family, the second chance at happiness after Amber's father passed. It was easier to believe Trevor than to admit she'd brought a threat into her own home. "I need to think," she said finally. "Take all the time you need. But Amber stays here until you've figured out where your loyalties are." Melissa stood up fast enough to knock her chair back. "How dare you? How dare you question my loyalty to my own daughter?" "I'm not questioning your loyalty, I'm questioning your judgment. You never liked Trevor. You never gave him a chance. You've been looking for a reason to. The reason is sitting right there, with a bruise on her face." Melissa looked at Amber, looked at me, then turned and walked out without another word. I heard her car start, heard her drive away. Amber was crying again. "She's never going to believe me. She's never going to leave him." "She will," I said. "It just takes time." "How do you know?" "Because I know your mother, and underneath all the denial and fear, she loves you more than she loves her own comfort. We just have to make sure she can't ignore the truth anymore." My phone buzzed. Text from Sean Baxter. "Call me when you can. Found something interesting." I called from the kitchen while Amber stayed at the table. "What have you got?" I asked. "Public records search on Trevor Reeves. Nothing criminal that stuck, but there's a pattern. 3 previous addresses over the last 10 years. 2 previous relationships that ended with restraining order requests. Both dropped. Former employer settled a harassment complaint. Another employer let him go during a restructuring that coincided with an HR investigation. He's done this before. Multiple times. And he's smart about it. Never lets anything get to court. Never leaves hard evidence. Just moves on when things get too hot and starts fresh somewhere else. Until now. Until now. Baxter agreed. Harry, you need to be careful. This guy isn't just abusive, he's calculated. If he thinks you're a threat to his setup with Melissa, he'll come after you. Let him try. I'm serious. Guys like this, when they lose control, they escalate. I'm counting on it, I said. When people escalate, they make mistakes. Baxter was quiet for a moment. You're planning something. I'm protecting my granddaughter. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. We hung up. I stood in my kitchen and thought about Trevor Reeves and his pattern of control and escape. Thought about how he'd learned to use the system against his targets. Thought about how he probably believed he was untouchable because he'd gotten away with it before. But he'd made one mistake. He'd messed with someone whose grandfather used to be Judge Satton. The envelope appeared on my porch Tuesday morning. I almost missed it. Just a plain manila envelope tucked against the doorframe. No address, no postage. Inside was a USB flash drive and a single piece of paper with 3 words. You should see. I plugged the drive into my laptop. Video footage. Date stamped from 4 days before Amber's call. Trevor and Melissa's bedroom. Trevor stood alone in front of a mirror, raised his hand and slapped himself across the face. Not hard, but enough to create visible redness. He examined the result from different angles, adjusted his expression, practiced looking shocked, hurt, defensive. Then he started talking. She attacked me. I was just trying to calm her down, and she attacked me. Pause, different tone. Officer, I don't want to press charges. She's just a teenager going through a difficult time. He was rehearsing, practicing his injuries, preparing for exactly what happened at the police station. I watched it 3 times, feeling something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't evidence I could use in court. Anonymous source, broken chain of custody. But it confirmed everything. I copied the video to 3 locations and locked the drive in my safe. Then I called Sean Baxter. If someone had video of a person staging false injuries, but it came from an anonymous source, inadmissible in court but could establish probable cause if corroborated by other evidence. That's what I thought. Harry, what did you find? Trevor Reeves practicing his victim story, complete with self-inflicted injury and rehearsed dialogue. 4 days before the incident, Baxter let out a low whistle. That's premeditation. Someone wants him exposed. Or someone wants to use you to expose him while keeping their hands clean. Harry, be careful. Always am. I made 3 calls. First to Westfield Logistics, learning Trevor's schedule. Second, to a private investigator for a background check. Third, to my lawyer about CPS paperwork if needed. Then Trevor called. Harold, we need to talk. I think we got off on the wrong foot. Did we? You were reacting as a grandfather. I understand. But there's been miscommunication about what really happened. What really happened is your stepdaughter called me terrified at 2 a.m. Because she was embarrassed about losing her temper. Harold, I care about Amber, but she's a teenager, and teenagers push boundaries. You pushed first. I restrained her when she became violent. That's what responsible parents do. And the bruise? Accidental. She pulled away while I was holding her arm. That's not what she says. With respect, Harold, she's 16. She's emotional and looking for someone to blame. Interesting how your story keeps changing. At the station you said she swung at you. Now you're saying she pulled away. Pause. I think you're trying to find inconsistencies where there aren't any. I think you're trying to maintain a story that doesn't hold up. Harold. His voice cooled. I understand you used to be a judge, but you're not in a courtroom now. This is a family matter, and you're making it worse. I'm encouraging Amber to tell the truth. Her truth isn't the truth. It's a teenager's distorted perception. You sound like you've practiced that line. Silence. When Trevor spoke again, all friendliness was gone. Melissa is my wife. Amber is my stepdaughter. I have legal rights, and you're interfering. Amber is my granddaughter. I have legal rights too, and I'm not going anywhere. We'll see about that. He hung up. I smiled. There it was. The real Trevor. The one who didn't like being challenged. That evening, my son Brendan called. Dad, what are you doing? Trevor says you're harassing him, trying to destroy Melissa's marriage. I'm protecting Amber from a man who struck her. She attacked him first. You weren't there, Brendan. Neither were you. Dad, Trevor's good for Mom. She's happy. Trevor is isolating her and escalating to aggressive behavior. According to a moody teenager, Trevor says she's been difficult since he married Mom. And you believe Trevor over your niece. I believe Mom's judgment. Your mother is being manipulated. Brendan, has Trevor asked you about me? My habits, my contacts, my finances? Pause. We talk. He's family. He's gathering intelligence. You're his asset now. You sound insane. Back off, Dad. When Amber is safe. He hung up. I sat in the silence and realized Trevor had already turned half my family against me. Smart. Isolate the threat before engaging. But he'd made one mistake. He'd assumed I'd fight alone. The private investigator's report arrived Thursday morning. 12 pages of documented history that painted a clear picture. Trevor Reeves had left 3 previous relationships over 10 years. 2 restraining order requests, both dropped before court. 1 harassment complaint at a former employer, settled quietly. Another employer let him go during an HR investigation. Each time he'd moved cities, changed jobs, started fresh. The pattern was precise. Get close. Establish control. Escalate until someone pushed back. Then discredit the victim and disappear before anything stuck. Melissa was just the latest version. I showed Amber the report. She read it silently, her face going pale. He's done this before, she whispered. Multiple times. Does Mom know? Not yet, but she will. I called Melissa. She didn't answer. I tried again an hour later. Still nothing. Finally, I texted, I have information about Trevor's past you need to see. Please call. She responded, Stop harassing my husband. You're not welcome in my house anymore. That was Trevor's phrasing. I could hear his voice in her words, so I tried a different approach. I called Patricia Gaines, Trevor's supervisor at Westfield Logistics, identified myself as a concerned family member, asked careful questions about Trevor's work history and whether there'd been any issues. She was professional, but cautious. Mr. Reeves is a satisfactory employee. I can't discuss personnel matters. Even if those matters involve a pattern of behavior that's now affecting his family. Long pause. What kind of pattern? I explained carefully, keeping to facts, avoiding speculation. Told her about the incident with Amber. About the video of Trevor rehearsing. About his previous relationships and workplace complaints. I can't confirm or deny any internal issues, she said finally. But hypothetically, if someone were to file a formal complaint with supporting evidence, HR would be required to investigate. Hypothetically. Yes. Thank you, Ms. Gaines. Mr. Satton, hypothetically, you're not the first person to call me about Trevor Reeves. My pulse quickened. Who else called? I can't say, but someone wanted me to know what kind of man worked in my department. They sent documentation. I filed it away, thinking it might be relevant someday. May I ask what kind of documentation? Emails, text messages, photos, all showing a pattern of intimidation and manipulation, all anonymous. The same person who sent me the video, someone building a case against Trevor from the shadows. If I were to provide additional evidence, I said carefully, would it be useful? Hypothetically? Yes, very useful. I spent the afternoon organizing everything. The investigator's report, Amber's written statement, photos of her injuries, timeline of Trevor's escalating behavior. I couldn't include the anonymous video, chain of custody issues, but I could include everything else. I sent it to Patricia Gaines with a formal complaint letter. Then I waited. Friday morning, Trevor showed up at my house. I saw his car pull into the driveway, saw him get out, moving fast, angry. He hammered on my door hard enough to rattle the frame. I opened it calmly. "Trevor, you need to stop." His face was flushed. "I just got called into HR because someone filed a complaint. Was that you?" "I exercised my right to report concerns about an employee who represents a company while engaging in violent behavior at home." "You're trying to get me fired." "I'm trying to protect my granddaughter." "She's not your granddaughter, she's my stepdaughter, and you're interfering with—" "She's both, and you're escalating." Trevor stepped closer, and I saw the mask crack further. "You think you're smart? You think you can come after me and there won't be consequences? I think you're used to people backing down. I'm not people. You're a retired judge with no power and no authority. You're just an old man playing games you don't understand. And you're a manipulator who's finally run into someone who knows all your tricks. How does it feel?" His hand moved, just slightly, like he was considering something physical. Then he caught himself, forced a cold smile. "Melissa is filing for custody, full custody. She's going to get a restraining order against you for parental interference and alienation. You'll never see Amber again." Melissa didn't come up with that on her own. Doesn't matter who thought of it. It's happening. And when it does, you'll have nothing. No granddaughter, no daughter, just your empty house and your self-righteous certainty that you were right. He turned and walked away. Got in his car and drove off fast enough to leave rubber on my driveway. I closed the door and called Sean Baxter immediately. Trevor just threatened me, directly, at my house. What did he say? I repeated the conversation word for word. "That's not quite a direct threat," Baxter said carefully, "but it's close. And if Melissa really does file for custody, he might be coaching her into perjury. Can you get ahead of this? I can document your call, create a record that you reported threatening behavior before any custody filing. If this goes to court, timeline matters. Do it." That evening, Amber came downstairs looking worried. "Grandpa," Mom texted. "She wants me to come home this weekend." "What did you say?" "Nothing yet. I'm scared." "Of Trevor?" "Of everything. What if she makes me go back? What if the custody thing is real? What if—" "Amber." I sat beside her. "Your mother loves you. She's confused and manipulated right now, but she loves you. That's going to win eventually." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do, because I know Melissa, and I know that when she finally sees the truth, really sees it, she won't be able to unsee it. We just need to make sure she sees it." "How?" "By making Trevor show his real face, and he's already starting to crack." The custody papers arrived Monday morning, hand-delivered by a process server who looked uncomfortable handing them to me. Melissa was filing for full custody of Amber, citing parental interference, emotional manipulation, and alienation. She was requesting a restraining order that would prevent me from contacting Amber without supervised visits. Every word had Trevor's fingerprints on it. I called my lawyer. "Can she win this?" "Depends. If Trevor coaches her testimony and Amber doesn't advocate for herself, maybe. But judges look hard at sudden custody changes, especially when there's documented evidence of abuse in the home. So we fight it. We fight it. But Harry, you need to prepare for the possibility that you might lose access temporarily while this gets sorted out." That was unacceptable. I'd spent 20 years watching the system fail kids because procedure moved slower than danger. I wouldn't let it fail, Amber. I needed leverage. Something that would force Melissa to see the truth before the court hearing. The anonymous video wasn't enough. She'd call it fake or taken out of context. The investigator's report wasn't enough. She'd say Trevor had changed. Amber's testimony wasn't enough. She'd written it off as teenage rebellion. I needed something undeniable. Something that showed Trevor's real nature in a way Melissa couldn't rationalize away. Sean Baxter called Tuesday afternoon. "Harry, something happened. Trevor filed a police report claiming you've been harassing him. Says you've been calling his workplace, showing up at his house, making threats." "I haven't shown up at his house. He came to mine." "I know, but he's building a counter-narrative. If this goes to court, he's going to paint you as an obsessed, controlling ex-judge who can't accept that his daughter remarried. That's his play. Discredit me before I can expose him. It's working. His report is already in the system. If you make one wrong move, he'll use it to prove you're the problem." I sat with that information and realized Trevor was better at this than I'd expected. He wasn't just reactive. He was strategic. Every move calculated to position himself as the reasonable victim and me as the aggressor. But strategy required predictability, and I'd spent 2 decades being unpredictable in a courtroom. That night, I did something risky. I called Melissa from a number she wouldn't recognize, a burner phone I'd picked up that afternoon. She answered cautiously. "Hello?" "Melissa, don't hang up. It's Dad." Silence. Then, "I told you not to contact me." "I know, but I need you to answer one question, just one. Then I'll leave you alone." "What? Has Trevor ever gone through your phone without permission?" Long pause. "That's not relevant to—" "Has he?" "He's my husband. We don't keep secrets." "That's not what I asked." Another pause. "Sometimes he checks my messages to make sure I'm not getting bad advice from people. People like me. People who want to destroy my marriage." "Melissa, he's isolating you, the same way he isolated his previous partners, the same way he's trying to isolate Amber. Can't you see the pattern?" "There's no pattern. There's just you, refusing to accept that I'm happy." "Are you happy? Really?" Silence. Then, quietly, "I was happy. Before you started all this. Before I protected Amber from being struck in the face. That was an accident. It wasn't. And deep down, you know it wasn't. You're just too scared to admit you brought someone dangerous into your home. I'm hanging up now. Melissa, wait. One more thing. Ask Trevor about his previous relationships. Ask him why 2 women filed restraining orders. Ask him why he left his last job during an HR investigation. Just ask him, and watch how he responds." She hung up. I didn't know if it would work. But I'd planted the seed. Now I had to wait and see if it grew. Wednesday morning, Amber showed me a text from Melissa. "We need to talk, just you and me. Coffee shop on Maple Street, 2 p.m. "Should I go?" Amber asked. "Yes, but I'm coming with you. I'll stay outside, but I'll be there." We drove to the coffee shop together. I parked where I could see through the window and watched Amber go inside. Watched Melissa arrive 5 minutes later, looking exhausted and conflicted. They talked for 20 minutes. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read body language. Melissa defensive at first. Amber patient, showing her something on her phone, probably the investigator's report. Melissa's face changing, doubt creeping in. Then Melissa's phone rang. She looked at it, answered, and her whole posture changed, shoulders tensing, voice rising. Even through the window I could see her getting angry. Trevor. Had to be. Melissa stood up abruptly, said something sharp to Amber, walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. Amber came to the car looking defeated. He called right when she was starting to listen. He always knows. It's like he can sense when she's doubting him. What did she say before he called? She asked about the restraining orders, said she'd never heard about them, said Trevor told her his ex was unstable and made false accusations, but now she was wondering if maybe there was more to it. That's progress. Then Trevor called and told her I was manipulating her, told her you'd coached me on what to say, and she believed him again. I watched Melissa's car pull out of the parking lot. She was driving too fast, hands tight on the wheel. Trevor was tightening his control, sensing he was losing ground, and when people like Trevor sensed they were losing, they escalated. I needed to be ready. Thursday evening, the rock came through my front window. I was in the kitchen when I heard the glass shatter. Rushed to the living room and saw the jagged hole, the rock on my carpet, the car speeding away down the street. I got to the window fast enough to see the taillights, the make and model, Trevor's car. Amber appeared at the top of the stairs, frightened. What was that? Stay upstairs. I called Sean Baxter. Trevor just threw a rock through my window. I saw his car leaving. You're sure it was him? Positive. Did you get the license plate? Didn't need to. I know the car. Harry, that's not enough for charges. You need concrete proof. I have security cameras. You do? As of yesterday. I'd installed them after Trevor's visit, simple wireless units that fed to my phone. I pulled up the footage and watched Trevor's car slow in front of my house, watched an arm extend from the driver's window, watched the rock fly. The angle wasn't perfect, couldn't see Trevor's face clearly, but it was his car, his arm, his watch. Send me that footage, Baxter said. Already done. I'll file a report, but Harry, this is escalation. He's moving from verbal threats to property destruction. Next time, it might not be just a rock. I know. Where's Amber? Here, safe. Keep her that way. I hung up and checked all the locks, boarded up the broken window with plywood from the garage, made sure every door, every entry point was secure. Amber came downstairs slowly. He's going to keep coming, isn't he? Until he can't anymore. What does that mean? It means we're close to the end. People like Trevor can maintain control when they're calm. But when they panic, they make mistakes. Big ones. And he's panicking. How do you know? Because throwing a rock through my window accomplishes nothing except proving he's losing control. It's not strategic. It's emotional. And emotion is weakness. Friday morning, Patricia Gaines called me. Mr. Satton, I thought you should know. Trevor Reeves has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. What happened? We received additional complaints from co-workers. Apparently, your report prompted others to come forward with their own experiences, intimidation, inappropriate behavior, creating a hostile environment. Taken individually, each complaint was minor. Together, they form a clear pattern. Is he being terminated? That's not my decision. But the investigation is thorough, and Mr. Reeves is not handling it well. He became aggressive with HR yesterday, had to be escorted from the building. Another crack in the facade, another loss of control. Thank you for letting me know. Mr. Satton, be careful. Men like Trevor Reeves don't accept accountability gracefully. I spent Friday preparing, reviewed everything I had, timeline of events, documentation, witness statements, video evidence. I organized it all into a comprehensive folder that told a clear story. Then I called Detective Baxter one more time. I think Trevor's going to make a move. Soon. He's losing everything. His job, his credibility, his control over Melissa. He's going to do something desperate. What do you want me to do? Be ready. When he breaks, I need you close. Harry, what are you planning? I'm planning to give him enough rope to hang himself, metaphorically speaking. I don't like this. You don't have to. You just have to trust me. Saturday afternoon, Melissa called. Her voice was shaking. Dad, I need to talk to you. Alone. Can you come to the house? Is Trevor there? No, he's been staying at a motel since Thursday. We had a fight. What about? Everything. His job. The investigation. The things people are saying about him. He's saying it's all your fault. That you've poisoned everyone against him. But I found something. What did you find? Come to the house, please. I need to show you. I told Amber to stay home with the doors locked. Drove to Melissa's house carefully, watching for Trevor's car. The house looked the same as always, suburban, well-maintained, the picture of normalcy. But when Melissa opened the door, she looked hollowed out, like someone who'd just realized their whole life was built on lies. "Come in," she said quietly. I followed her to the kitchen. On the table was her laptop, open to an email account I didn't recognize. "I found his other email," she said, "the one he thought I didn't know about. I was looking for documentation about his job and I found this." She turned the laptop toward me. The screen showed an email thread between Trevor and someone named Michael. The content made my stomach turn. Trevor describing his project with Melissa, talking about how easy she was to manipulate, bragging about how he'd isolated her from family and friends, discussing strategies for controlling Amber, planning how to squeeze money from Melissa's accounts without her noticing. It was all there, every calculation, every lie, every manipulation laid out in casual, clinical detail. "He called me a project," Melissa whispered. "He called me easy. Melissa, I defended him. I chose him over my own daughter. I was going to file custody papers against you, and this whole time he was—" She couldn't finish, just gestured helplessly at the screen. I read through the emails carefully. They were devastating, undeniable, the kind of evidence that would destroy any sympathy Trevor had left. "Can I make copies of these?" She nodded. "Take all of it. I don't care anymore. I just want him gone." I copied every email to a flash drive. "Where is he now?" "The Harbor Inn on Route 9. He's been calling me constantly, saying we need to talk, that he can explain everything. But I can't. I can't even hear his voice anymore." "Melissa, listen to me carefully. You did the right thing calling me. But Trevor is going to escalate when he realizes you've turned against him. I need you to take Amber and come stay with me until this is resolved. I can't just—" "Yes, you can. Pack what you need. Get Amber. Come to my house. Tonight." She looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. Didn't believe Amber. I let him. We'll deal with that later. Right now, we need to keep everyone safe." She nodded and started moving. I called Baxter from my car. "Trevor's about to break completely. His wife just found emails proving everything. She's leaving him, bringing Amber to my place. I think he's going to come after me." "Where is he?" "Harbor Inn, Route 9. I'll send a unit to keep eyes on him. Don't engage. Just watch. I want to know when he moves. Harry, just watch Sean, please." He agreed, reluctantly. I drove home and prepared. Made sure doors were locked, cameras were recording, phone was charged. Then I waited. Melissa and Amber arrived an hour later. Both looked exhausted but relieved. I set them up in the guest rooms and made sure they understood not to answer the door for anyone. Then I sat in my living room with all the lights off and waited for Trevor to make his final mistake. The call came at midnight. Trevor's voice was different. Raw, unhinged, all the careful control stripped away. "You destroyed my life." "No, Trevor. You did that yourself. Melissa won't answer my calls. My job is gone. Everyone thinks I'm some kind of monster. Because of you. Because of the truth." "The truth?" He laughed, sharp, bitter. "The truth is that I gave Melissa everything. I gave her stability, structure, purpose, and you turned her against me with lies and manipulation. I showed her who you really are. You showed her a version of me filtered through your self-righteous judgment. You think you're so much better than me? You're just like me, Harry. You manipulate, you control, you use people to get what you want. The only difference is you wore a robe while you did it. The difference is I protected people. You hurt them. I loved them. I loved Melissa. I tried to love Amber, but they wouldn't let me. They wouldn't submit to what was best for them. Submit. Interesting word choice. You know what I mean. I do. That's the problem. Silence. Then, where are they? Safe. They're with you. I know they're with you. Tell Melissa I just want to talk. That's all. Just talk. She doesn't want to talk to you. She's my wife. Not for long. Another silence. Longer. I'm coming over there. Don't. I'm coming over and you're going to let me see my family, or I swear to God. You'll what, Trevor? Throw another rock? File another false report? You're out of moves. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Actually, I do. I've seen your pattern. 3 previous relationships. Same manipulation, same escalation, same retreat when you got caught. You're predictable. I'm not retreating this time. He hung up. I immediately called Baxter. Trevor just threatened to come here. He's unraveling. Unit's been watching his motel. He just left. Driving toward your location. How far out? 10 minutes, maybe less if he's speeding. Let him come, but stay close. When he gets here, I want this documented. Harry, what are you doing? Giving him a chance to hang himself. I woke Melissa and Amber, told them to stay upstairs with the door locked. Gave Melissa my spare phone. If anything happens, call 911 immediately. Then I went downstairs and waited. Trevor's car pulled up 7 minutes later. I watched through the window as he got out. He moved erratically, jerky, aggressive movements that said he was past thinking clearly. He hammered on my door. Open up, Harry, I know they're in there. I opened the door, but kept the security chain on. Go home, Trevor. That's my wife. That's my stepdaughter. You can't keep them from me. They're here voluntarily. They don't want to see you. You turned them against me. You poisoned them with your lies. I showed them the truth. Your emails, Trevor. Melissa found your emails. Where you called her a project. Where you planned how to manipulate and control her. She read every word. His face went white. Then red. Those were private. Nothing's private when it's evidence of abuse. I never abused anyone. I loved her. I gave her everything. You gave her a performance, and now the show's over. He hit the door with his fist. Let me in. No. Let me in or I'll... You'll what? I kept my voice calm. You'll break down the door? Assault me? Prove everything I've said about you? Please do. There are 3 cameras recording you right now, and police are 2 minutes away. He looked around wildly, spotted the cameras. Something in him snapped. You think you've won? You think you can just take my family and walk away? They were never yours to take, Trevor. They were people, not possessions. I'm not leaving without them. Yes, you are. He backed up. For a moment, I thought he was leaving. Then he charged the door. The chain held, barely. He hit it again, shoulder first, and this time the frame cracked. I stepped back, pulled out my phone. Sean, he's trying to break in. 2 units rolling now, 30 seconds out. Trevor hit the door a 3rd time. The chain tore free. He stumbled into my house, breathing hard, eyes wild. Where are they? Leave now, Trevor. This is your last chance. Tell me where they are. He moved toward the stairs. I blocked him. Step back. Move. No. He shoved me. I'd been expecting it, stayed balanced, stayed calm. That's assault, I said. On camera. I don't care anymore. I don't care about cameras or police or your pathetic attempts to control me. I just want my family back. They're not coming back. Something broke in his eyes. He swung at me, wild, uncontrolled. I stepped aside. His momentum carried him forward into the wall. He spun around, and I saw it clearly now. The complete collapse of his mask. The real Trevor, exposed and desperate. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Hear that? I said. It's over. No. You've lost, Trevor. Your job, your wife, your credibility. Your freedom's about to go too. Because breaking into my home, assaulting me, threatening my family, that's not going away. That's real charges, real consequences. He lunged at me again, This time I caught his arm, twisted, used his own momentum to take him down. 20 years ago, I'd taken self-defense courses as part of judicial security training. The muscle memory was still there. Trevor hit the floor hard. I pinned him with a knee on his back. "Stay down," he struggled. "Let me go." "Not a chance." The sirens stopped outside. Doors slammed. Footsteps rushed toward my door. "Police! Don't move!" 3 officers burst in, weapons drawn, saw me holding Trevor down, saw the broken door, saw the cameras. "Judge Satton?" One of them recognized me. "This man broke into my home and assaulted me. It's all on camera. My daughter and granddaughter are upstairs. He was trying to reach them against their will." They pulled Trevor off the floor, cuffed him, read him his rights. Trevor was still yelling. "He's lying. He turned my family against me. He manipulated everyone." "Sir, you need to calm down. I need to see my wife. She's being held here against her will." "Is that true?" the officer asked me. "She's upstairs. You're welcome to ask her yourself." They did. Melissa came down with Amber, both pale but steady. Melissa looked at Trevor like she was seeing him for the first time. "I want him arrested," she said clearly, "for breaking into this house, for threatening my family, for everything he's done." Trevor's face crumpled. "Mel, please. I love you. I was just scared. I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. You meant all of it. I read the emails, Trevor. I know what you really think of me." They led him away, still protesting, still claiming victimhood, still performing even though no one was watching anymore. Sean Baxter arrived as they were loading Trevor into the police car. He looked at me and shook his head. "You couldn't just let the system handle it?" The system was too slow. He was escalating. Someone could have gotten hurt. "So you provoked him into attacking you on camera." "I gave him an opportunity to make better choices. He chose poorly." That's one way to put it. Baxter glanced at the police car. "He's looking at breaking and entering, assault, violating the restraining order Melissa filed yesterday." "She filed yesterday?" "After she found the emails. Didn't she tell you?" I looked at Melissa. She shrugged. "I wanted to surprise you, wanted to show I was finally taking action." "This isn't going to trial," Baxter continued. "Too much evidence. He'll plead out, probably get supervised probation, mandatory counseling, and a permanent restraining order." "Good enough. For now." He lowered his voice. "But guys like Trevor don't just disappear. They restart somewhere else with someone else. Not my problem anymore. Cold, Harry. Realistic." He left. The other officers finished their reports and cleared out. Melissa locked what was left of my door. We stood in the sudden silence. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For not giving up on us, even when I wouldn't listen. You're my daughter. That's what family does." She hugged me, long and tight and desperate. Amber joined us. We stood there together, 3 generations holding on to each other in the wreckage of Trevor's final performance. "What happens now?" Amber asked. "Now you're safe," I said. "That's what matters." "Will he come back?" "Not a chance. The system's got him now, and this time, there's no walking away." The hearing was 3 weeks later. Formal custody arrangements, restraining orders, evidence presentation. Trevor sat across the courtroom with a public defender, looking smaller somehow. Defeated. He'd tried to mount a defense. Claimed he was the real victim. That we'd conspired against him. That the emails were taken out of context. That he'd only gone to my house because he was worried about his family's safety. No one believed him. The prosecutor presented everything. The anonymous video of Trevor rehearsing his injuries. The investigator's report showing his pattern across relationships. Witness statements from co-workers. The emails. Security footage of him breaking into my home. It was comprehensive, overwhelming, undeniable. The judge, a woman named Patricia Chen, who I'd worked with years ago, looked at Trevor with the particular contempt reserved for manipulators who waste the court's time. "Mr. Reeves, I've reviewed all the evidence presented. Your pattern of behavior shows deliberate emotional mistreatment, manipulation, and a shift toward harmful aggression. The evidence against you is significant and credible. Trevor started to speak. She cut him off. I'm granting Mrs. Satton Reeves full custody of her minor child with no visitation rights for you. I'm issuing a permanent restraining order preventing you from contacting Mrs. Satton Reeves, Amber Satton, or Harold Satton. I'm also recommending that the prosecutor's office pursue charges for the assault and break-in. Do you understand? Your Honor, if I could just explain, do you understand? His shoulders slumped. Yes. Good. Because if you violate any part of this order, you will be arrested immediately and charged with contempt. This court treats domestic aggression with utmost seriousness, Mr. Reeves. Consider yourself fortunate to be leaving here today. She banged the gavel. It was over. We left the courthouse together, me, Melissa, and Amber. Trevor tried to approach us in the parking lot, but 2 officers intercepted him, reminded him about the restraining order. He backed away slowly, watching us leave. Is it really over? Amber asked. It's really over, I said. Melissa had filed for divorce the week before, moved back into my house temporarily while she figured out next steps. She was rebuilding, reconnecting with old friends Trevor had isolated her from, going to therapy, learning how to trust her own judgment again. It would take time, but she was strong. She'd get there. That night, we ordered pizza and sat in my living room like we used to before Trevor, before the manipulation, before everything fractured. I keep thinking about what he said, Melissa told me quietly, about how I was easy to manipulate, about how I fell for everything. You trusted someone you loved. That's not weakness. It feels like weakness. It's human. Trevor was a professional. He'd done this before. He knew exactly how to exploit kindness and turn it into control. I should have seen it sooner. Maybe, but you see it now. That's what matters. She nodded, but I could see the guilt still working on her. It would for a while. Dad, Amber said, what made you keep pushing? Even when no one believed you? Because I knew the truth, and because you needed someone in your corner who wouldn't back down. Like Judge Satton. Just like that. We finished the pizza, watched a movie, pretended things were normal, and slowly, gradually, they started to become normal again. 2 weeks later, I got a letter. No return address. Postmarked from 2 states away. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 3 sentences. Thank you for finishing what I started. Trevor Reeves needed to be stopped. You did what I couldn't. I stared at the letter for a long time. Thought about the anonymous flash drive, the person who'd sent documentation to Trevor's workplace, the invisible ally who'd been building a case from the shadows, someone else Trevor had hurt, someone who'd watched me take him down and finally felt safe enough to acknowledge it. I filed the letter away with all the other evidence. Maybe someday I'd figure out who sent it, maybe not. Either way, they'd gotten what they wanted. Justice, accountability, proof that Trevor Reeves couldn't hurt people forever. Melissa found a new apartment 3 weeks later. Small but safe, in a building with good security. She and Amber moved in together, started building their life again. I helped with furniture, with painting, with all the small things that made a house feel like home. You don't have to do all this, Melissa said as we assembled a bookshelf. I want to. I know, but... Melissa, let me help. She smiled, real and genuine, the first time I'd seen that expression in years. Okay. Life settled into new rhythms. Sunday dinners, Wednesday phone calls, random texts from Amber showing me her artwork, the small, ordinary moments that said we were family again. Trevor disappeared into whatever hole people like him crawl into when their masks break. I heard through Baxter that he'd moved out of state, started over somewhere else, maybe found someone new to manipulate. But that wasn't my concern anymore. I'd done what I needed to do, protected my family, exposed the truth. Made sure Trevor Reeves faced consequences for once in his miserable life. Judge Satton could rest again. For now. 6 months after the hearing, I was working in my garden when Amber came running across the yard, waving her phone. "Grandpa, you need to see this." I straightened up slowly. 63-year-old backs don't appreciate sudden movements. "What is it?" "Trevor got arrested. Real arrested. In Montana." She showed me the news article. Trevor Reeves, charged with assault and harassment of his new girlfriend. Bail denied because of his record. Prior restraining orders finally catching up to him. "He did it again," Amber said. "Just like you said he would." People like Trevor don't change. They just find new victims. But this time they caught him fast. Because of our case. Because everything's documented now. I read the article carefully. Saw our documentation referenced. Saw Judge Chen's ruling cited as evidence of pattern behavior. Saw Trevor's careful system finally collapse under the weight of accumulated truth. "Good," I said simply. "Is it weird that I'm happy he got arrested?" "Not even a little bit." We went inside. Melissa was in the kitchen making lunch. I showed her the article. She read it without expression. "Feel anything?" I asked. "Relief," she said quietly. "Relief that he's someone else's problem now. Relief that we got away. Relief that—" She paused. "Relief that you didn't give up on us." "Never would have." "I know. But I'm still grateful." We ate lunch together, sandwiches and conversation and the comfortable silence of people who'd been through fire and come out the other side. After Melissa and Amber left, I sat on my porch and thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the manipulation, the systematic destruction of trust, the long fight to expose truth when everyone wanted to believe lies, and then the satisfaction of watching it all crumble. Watching Trevor's mask crack and fall away. Watching justice, real justice, finally catch up to someone who'd spent years outrunning it. My phone buzzed. Text from Sean Baxter. "Saw the news about Trevor. You were right about him." I typed back, "Always am." "Humble as ever, Judge Satton." "Just accurate." I set the phone down and looked at my garden. The flowers I'd planted, the lawn I'd mowed, the simple, quiet life I'd built after retiring from the bench. It was good to be back to normal. Good to know Melissa and Amber were safe. Good to know Trevor was finally facing consequences he couldn't manipulate or charm his way out of. The system had been slow, had almost failed. But in the end, with the right pressure applied at the right points, it had worked. Maybe I was retired. Maybe I didn't have the robe anymore. Maybe I was just an old man with a garden and too much time. But when it mattered, when my family needed me, I'd become Judge Satton one more time. And I'd reminded Trevor Reeves and everyone watching exactly what that meant. Justice. Truth. Protection. No matter how long it took. No matter what it cost. No matter who stood in the way. I'd protected my family. Exposed a predator. Delivered a verdict that would follow Trevor Reeves for the rest of his miserable life. And that was enough.